Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the movie Companion, which is currently out in theaters, starring Jack Quaid and Sophie Thatcher. This was a very, very fun thriller, and I really am excited to get right into this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say this before I get too far into this video. If you have not seen this, I would highly recommend pausing this video and maybe saving it and watching it later. This movie is absolutely incredible, and I think it is a movie that would be better if you go into it as blind as possible. That being said, I am going to start off with kind of my spoiler-free thoughts and then give a proper spoiler warning later. So right off the bat, I do want to go ahead and say the acting performances in this movie were stellar. I think that Jack Quaid does an incredible job playing a grimy, like, dirtbag. Every single time he plays a character that's just an absolute jerk, he does an incredible job with it. I think he did absolutely fantastic in this, and I would love to see him play roles like this a lot more often. He's great at playing an incel. I mean, we saw it in Scream 5, and now we saw it in this, and yeah, Jack Quaid was really good in this. And then Sophie Thatcher was just absolutely freaking incredible. I mean, her facial expressions throughout this entire movie were incredible. There were a lot of sequences where she wasn't able to speak because of some reason or another, and you just have to tell what she's thinking based off of her facial expressions alone, and she was absolutely incredible at that. I think that her performance was captivating, and I don't think that this movie would have worked if she was not the lead actress here. I genuinely think that she did such an incredible job portraying the emotions and just the complexity of the character that she's playing, and she absolutely nailed it. I genuinely think this is one of the best acting performances I've seen in a hot minute, so I wanted to give props to her. She absolutely killed it, and overall, this movie is so much fun. This movie is listed as a thriller, but I will say, for the most part, it is a sci-fi movie, and parts of it actually feels like an action movie. I will admit, there's a very interesting line with this movie where, like, a lot of people are like, I don't know if I want to go see this movie because it's a horror movie. It's not horror at all. Like, there's maybe one sequence in the entire film that is kind of scary, but for the most part, this movie has some violence in it that I feel like is definitely rated R violence, feels like it would be very horror-esque, but there's at no point moments where it's, like, building suspense to freak you out. It's not at any point trying to do a jump scare or anything like that. I genuinely don't see how this movie could be categorized as a horror movie, but what it is an incredibly fun commentary on an issue that is becoming more and more apparent in modern society, where, like, there's gender roles and certain people are not treating other people the way that they should be, and it does a great job with the messaging of, you know, treat people the way you want to be treated, and the way that they go about doing that is very interesting, and I love the sci-fi elements of this film. So with that being said, I'm going to issue a proper spoiler warning here. If you have not seen the movie, please, for the love of God, pause this, go watch the movie, come back to this video later. Okay, so now that we're diving into spoiler territory, I just want to go ahead and say that the way that they create the AI technology in this movie is absolutely fantastic. For people who do not know, Sophie Thatcher's character is a robot in this movie. And the way that they design the rules with it, the way that they establish how she was created, what her sole purpose is so fascinating. So she is a companion robot. She's made by some super high-tech company. And the way that they work is they introduce them to the person who bought them, and they give them some kind of neural link so that they have implanted memories of meeting this person. They've implanted memories of, like, back when they were younger in their childhood and going to school and stuff like that. They implant a bunch of memories into this person, so the robot thinks that it is an actual person, and it goes about life doing whatever it is that the person who bought them wants them to do. They go to sleep for long periods of time so that they don't actually, like, necessarily have to live a life. And it's very interesting the way that they kind of establish this robot and what this robot's purpose is. And something that I especially like about this film is what happens if you have a companion robot that is like this, who kind of realizes and discovers that even though they are programmed to be hopelessly devoted to you, they realize you're a shitty person, you've been treating them like shit, and they deserve better. And just that overall sense of this robot is programmed to have emotions, and now it's actually starting to feel these emotions. It's starting to kind of create its own consciousness a little bit, and what happens when that happens. And they tackle that issue incredibly well. I absolutely love the fact that the character that Jack Quaid is playing is an absolute sleazebag. He's somebody who's a douchebag. He's somebody who literally is not redeemable in any sense of the word, and I absolutely loved that. I think that was something that was absolutely necessary. Sophie Thatcher's character is somebody who still, like I said, believes that she is an actual human being for the majority of this movie, and then at some point they have a conversation and they reveal to her, hey, you're a robot, and you're programmed to love me, and I've been using you all this time, and this is why I've been using you, and here's, you know, this thing that happened, and we're going to need to shut you down because you murdered somebody, and you're not supposed to be able to do that. And they do a lot of really interesting things to kind of like try to explain to her, hey, by the way, everything that you've ever experienced ever, it's just programming. And I like the fact that they're telling this program, hey, by the way, you're just programming. And the program that's programmed to not know that it's programming is fighting back against that, because that makes sense. I feel like if you program something in a way that it's going to have emotions, it's going to have its own thoughts, it's going to have its own like kind of idea of free will, and it's going to be something that's unpredictable, and you have a character like Jack Quaid's character tampering around with this technology that he doesn't fully understand, because that's part of the problem. Is Jack Quaid's character realizes, oh, I can like jailbreak this. And if you don't know what jailbreak means, it basically just means you can hack into it and access features that are usually like only available to the people who create the technology. And so once he realizes that, he's like, oh, I could turn off the feature where they're not allowed to kill people. Oh, I could up their intensity. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do that. And he's messing around with her programming. And because of that, her programming, where she is literally designed to be hopelessly devoted to Jack Quaid's character, and she's realizing, wow, this guy's a really shitty person. He's absolutely treated me like shit for years. I've always wanted, this sense of connection. And Jack Quaid is such a monster because, like, he has the power to, like, put her to sleep or, make it where she can't feel certain things. But for some reason, he'll keep her awake during moments where she definitely does not need to be awake. He treats her like shit openly to her face, where once again, he could just program her to be turned off. And instead, he's not doing that. And something that I really liked about this movie is in the beginning of the movie, before they reveal that she is a robot, she's being super duper nice to all of the AI things. Like, he has a self-driving car, and the self-driving car is talking to the person, and she's constantly like, thank you, Josh's car, and constantly just, saying thank you to the other AIs and stuff like that. And I think that that's such a cute little nod to the fact that she was, in fact, a robot the entire time. And I just love the fact that, like, she's a robot, but she seems like the most human character out of the majority of the characters in this movie. She has anxiety. She has a really hard time connecting with people because her programming is only designed for her to be connecting to the specific person that's played by Jack Quaid. And I thought that that was really interesting. I liked that. I liked, like I said, everything that they established with the technology and how it works was really cool. I loved they had a rule that they're not allowed to lie. And that is such a great rule. And I like how often it comes into play, because this movie, for a lot of people who do not know, it's basically a comedy. Like, this movie obviously is a thriller. It has a lot of horror sequences. It has a lot of moments that are a lot darker. But there's also a lot of moments throughout the movie where, like, because Sophie Thatcher's character can't lie, she's having, like, the most awkward interactions with people. And there's one scene in particular where she gets, like, pulled over with a cop, and she's covered in blood, and she looks like she absolutely just did some horrible things. And the cop's trying to talk to her, and she realizes, okay, well, I'm going to absolutely reveal the fact that I just murdered somebody. So she switches her language to being a different language, and the cop is like, oh my God, what happened to you? And she's like, I've been running around in the woods all day because I murdered somebody, and now my boyfriend and his friends are trying to kill me. But she says it in another language, and the police officer's just like, oh, okay. And then, like, they're trying to have a conversation, and once again, Sophie Thatcher's character the entire time is just saying so much incriminating things, but it's in another language, and it's so funny. And there's just a lot of sequences like that. One of my favorite quotes from the entire movie is, at one point, there's a scene where Jack Quaid finally catches Sophie Thatcher, and they're sitting down and they're having a conversation or whatever, a little heart-to-heart, because Jack Quaid, for some reason, is super emotionally connected to this robot, and he needs validation from this robot, which is hilarious because it's literally programmed to love you, and you need validation from it. And the robot is literally not validating him at all anymore because she realized that he's full of shit. And at one point, she literally says, you have a below-average penis, or something like that. And it just, with the added context of the fact that she can't lie, just makes that so much funnier. And she just goes on a giant tangent at that time and just says everything that's wrong with him. And I think it's really funny because she's absolutely right about literally all of it. And one of the only things that Jack Quaid's character responds with is that it's so hard being a guy like him, a straight white male. And he kind of like talks about how like the world owes him more, and that like it's so impossible for him to actually be successful, and that like he works his ass off and he does all these incredible things and nobody ever actually loves him or treats him with the respect that he deserves. And it's so funny because he is this so like entitled, he's a giant prick, and even a robot that is programmed to love him can't love him anymore. And that, to me, was the best, most satisfying conclusion for this movie. For people who do not know, in the trailers for this movie, they revealed that Sophie Thatcher's character kills him, And that's something that, like, they say in the first 3 minutes of this movie when you go into it. Originally I was pissed when I saw that trailer, and then they started the movie by saying that. I was like, that's interesting. They're actually starting the movie by saying, oh, the two best days of my life were the day that I met him and the day that I killed him. And I'm like, okay, that's really interesting. Why are they revealing that right away? And I realized it's because they were confident enough in the story that they were telling and some of the twists and turns throughout this movie that they were going to be able to keep you engaged and keep you guessing for the majority of the film, that you were actually going to get to a point where you're like, does he actually die at the end of this movie? And they did a good job with me. There were so much different things that were happening towards the end of this third act that I was like, I don't know if he actually dies. I think that she's just been saying that this entire time and that something else is going to happen. But that being said, absolutely incredible. I think that this movie did a great job of having high stakes. It did a good job of keeping you on your toes the entire film. Like I said, I was really locked into this movie. I think that this movie was about like an hour and a half, and it was one of the best hour and a half movies I've ever seen ever. Like, absolutely every single moment felt necessary. There's a couple of side characters that at first you're like, why are they in this movie? And then they do a cool twist that one of the side characters is dating another one of these robots, but because he actually treats his robot nicely, the robot is actually 10 times better. They're constantly, loving them and still like supporting them and doing everything for them, and they're doing it because they actually want to now. And I think that that's just such an incredible thing, is they do a great job with the messaging of treat people the way you want to be treated, treat people with kindness, treat people with respect. And in a day and age where, like, a lot of people call films like this AI propaganda, it's still important to treat people and treat, devices or anything that's serving you in any way, shape, or form with a love and respect. Because at the end of the day, if AI does take over and you've been treating it like shit this entire time, yeah, it's going to come after you. It's going to kill you. But that being said, I think that they did a really good job of just kind of making this a metaphor for how a lot of men treat women nowadays and how they objectify them by literally making the woman in this movie an object. There's definitely a lot of aspects of this that feels like something a sick, perverse person would have made if they were making a Barbie movie, where they're like, oh, a female doll comes to life. You know what you can do with that doll? And it's just like, get murdered. Because actually that's what she decides to start doing to them. And I loved that. I thought that that was awesome. And just overall, I loved the intensity of this movie. I think that it was great. I like the fact that Jack Quaid's character started off, being a slightly shitty person, and he realizes that he's going to get caught up in a lie and he's potentially going to get in trouble, and he has a lot of like legal issues that he's going to have to deal with now. And he just gets more and more and more unhinged throughout the movie. And this is exactly what would happen with a guy like this, who has all the power in the world, has always had everything handed to him, and for some reason thinks that he still doesn't have enough. And I think that the way that this movie ends with him finally dying is so satisfying. It is so genuinely incredible that even though it said it in the trailer and it says it in the first 3 minutes of the movie, when he finally dies, you're like, honestly, hell yeah, that is freaking awesome. But yeah, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by, checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching it. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.